Good day, Life Group leaders. I'm going to be speaking to you a little bit about this week's Life Group evening. And what we've chosen for this week is kind of like give people an opportunity to get up to speed with the Surviving No Man's Land series. We've been busy with Galatians, which actually ties in brilliantly with the series. It's all about law and grace, or works and grace. And so those learnings can be leveraged into the series quite nicely. But what we want to do is we actually want to give you an insight into your people and track with them what God's been doing in their life. So there's 4 questions that we're going to take people through. The first question is, what part of Surviving No Man's Land has spoken most to you so far? And so that's really interesting to see what God's been doing in people's lives and how they've been responding to this. You might not have been having these discussions in your life group. You probably haven't because we've been busy with Galatians. But it gives you a real insight into what God's doing with individual people. And working with people and having preached for a number of years, I'm always surprised at what people take out of the sermons I preach. I think this is my big point, but some minor points here God really highlighted to them and He's using it in their life. And so it gives people opportunity to talk about those things, and it gives you as a leader real insight into the lives of your people. And so you're going to have to encourage people to speak this week and really encourage to draw them out. Don't be scared to ask people. So you get that person who's quiet every week. They don't want to share. You feel like they're holding a whole bunch of stuff in. Just say, hey, what has God been speaking to you about? And try and create space for the quiet and more reserved people to talk. And it's amazing what happens when you ask those questions and everyone keeps quiet. Sometimes it takes a few seconds, but eventually people start to venture forth. When people do that and when they take risks with the group, thank them for doing it. Say, man, that was really brave. That was really courageous. Thank you so much for sharing. It's really good to know what God's doing in your life. And you're affirming people as they're sharing their hearts. So that's your first question. Your second question is, what has been your biggest no man's land you've walked through? What is your area of no man's land right now? And so that really gives people the opportunity to share what God's been doing with them and the real struggles that they've had. I've got to be honest with you. Sharing about my story of journeying through depression was very vulnerable. The weekend before I came to preach that sermon, I didn't want to get up here. I didn't want to tell people that story, but it's a part of my testimony. It's part of what Jesus Christ has done in my life. I'm not ashamed of it because, yes, that's who I was, but it's not who I am because Jesus Christ is in me. I really want to ask you as leaders, set the tone with vulnerability. If you think you're going to struggle to get people talking in your group, phone them a few days before and say, hey, this Tuesday we're going to have this discussion. Please come and share vulnerably with the group so that you set the tone for other people to share. And so by preempting these discussions for people, you help people think through what they really want to share. And it should be a great evening if you get that happening. If it doesn't happen or people don't venture their deepest stuff, don't be discouraged. But look for people that you might need to have a one-on-one with afterwards and say, hey, I don't feel like you really shared your full story there. Can we meet? Can we chat through that stuff? Third question is, when you've been in no man's land, how have you tried to cope with it? What has it exposed about what's in your heart? And to start your thinking in this area, I spoke about the 7 different responses to no man's land. Mr. Active, Mr. Passive, Mr. Me, Mr. Not Me, Mr. Indignant, Mr. Survivor, Mr. Distraction. And that together with Trav's preach on turning to alternative belief systems should start to create a self-awareness in people. When we work with people, self-awareness is huge. I sometimes think that we can only work with them to the degree that they're self-aware. And when people have blind spots, when people just don't see where they're struggling, it can be quite difficult to work with them. And so these questions are aimed at getting people to have insight, getting people to see what's going on inside of them. And it helps people. We've given people, in a sense, diagnostic tools. He has a whole bunch of the diagnostics of what people go through. In other words, symptoms of each of those 7 people. And in our attachment this week, we've got those symptoms for you, fleshed out, so that you can read through them and get an understanding of what we're going through. Maybe you can lead your group through them so that they can actually understand what's going on. The last question that we've got is this: we need to respond with faith to the grace of God in order to survive and thrive in no man's land. Write a statement of faith for your area of no man's land and share it with your group. It might be helpful to have pens and paper handy for this. And a statement of faith is this. So whatever area people are struggling in, encourage them to write a position of faith in the grace of God for that area. So people are struggling with singleness. They've been single forever. All their friends are getting married. Get them to write a statement of faith, something like, I believe that God can satisfy my heart in my singleness. I believe that singleness is a gift from God. That's what the Bible says. And I believe that I can thrive in my singleness in relationship with Jesus right now. So what that does is it reframes their thinking according to the Word of God and in a position of faith based on His grace and the promises of God. And you can do that for any area that people are going through. And then encourage people to share their statement of faith with the group. And so again, that's quite vulnerable because it's generally quite personal, but it should be a great faith-building exercise for people. As we all journey that, hey, we all go through no man's land. We all go through these struggles, but we can relate to God and the grace that we have in Him, and we can lay hold of it by faith and really honor God by faith. The thing about all these things is that Jesus Christ is enough to satisfy our hearts in any area of life. That doesn't mean there's not pain. It just means that He can satisfy us. He can fill us. He can give us life and life in abundance. He can comfort us. He can help us grieve and grieve alongside us. And when we share like this, it builds a sense of family and commitment to each other. I'm really trusting you guys are going to have a good life group this week, and you guys are going to get to know the people in your group better, how you can serve them, how you can pray for them, and that taking risks together would be a really healthy thing.